Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you here right from the start. I have no real expertise about NAS systems and I'm not quite sure what to actually cover in this review since I have never used one for myself. For that kind of use case scenario, I always had my personal server, which I actually use quite limited as well. But when I was asked to review one, I thought it would be finally the time to check one to see what it can do and if it actually could maybe replace my limited use case for my server. Because what is that? I actually only do two things with my own server. Use it to get access to the storage on that PC and to it running my Squeezebox server software. That's all I can do with it. Now, I can already tell you one thing. I can access the storage on this NAS without any issues, but what I can't do is run my Squeezebox server software, which I guess most NAS systems can't do either, but I guess this is a very rare use case anyways. So let's see what this can do and if it could be right for you. Now, let's check it at the back. Here we have a fan running. It's a very quiet one. You hear it maybe from half a meter, maybe a meter. But if it's in a room where you don't actually live in, like for example where your modem is and so on, your router, this should be not an issue. Now here we can see 2 times USB. One is USB 3, one is USB 2.0. We have 2 LANs. So in theory, you should be able to kind of pair these two and get 2 gigabit if your router supports it. I personally couldn't try that, but from what I read, it should be possible, but it's not quite that easy. And of course, the DC in. Other than that, on the bottom, we can see rubber feet, a little bit of ventilation. Definitely a nice casing. Feels solid, nice aluminum. Here on the front, some LEDs with the power button. And here we have the 2 trays. They are very easy to get out. As you can see, just pull the lever and take it out. And here you could store your drives. Now, since I really don't have any hard drives anymore, but pretty much just SSDs at least left, I used an older Samsung 830 SSD, but this at least gives me the chance to check the full speed. And I can already tell you one thing, this whole construction feels quite solid. It was really easy to get this right. It is hot swappable. You can do this. Of course, it fits obviously 2 drives, but there is also a 4-drive connection. Other than that, I don't think I really have to show anything here in terms of the casing. So let's talk a little bit about what it can do. So could I access my storage on it throughout it? Absolutely no problems. I actually got complete full gigabit speed, so 110, 112 megabytes. This is what I get through my own gigabit connection through my server, and I got this through that as well. Now, what I had a few issues with is over Wi-Fi. I could connect to it with my laptops and so on, but there for some reason I couldn't nearly get the speed that it usually handles through my server. It was very weird because if I went from one PC to the other, I got like maybe sometimes 30, sometimes 35 megabytes instead of the 100, or at least what my AC Wi-Fi is capable of, about 50 to 60, sometimes even 80 on some devices megabytes per second. I only got 3. Over Android devices, for example, I just got 4 megabytes, which is normal though. This is what I get on every Android device, so I can't really put it on that one. So I'm not quite sure why I did not get more through a laptop to this NAS, like 30 megabytes, where I usually get like 50, 60, so I have no idea. Because what it does right well for me. If I just am here and want to access it through this PC or the other PC downstairs, or usually through my laptop, I get the speeds that I needed to. So here it just does what it has to do. Now, like I said, I run also on my server Squeezebox server software. I can't do this with that one. Not a big issue for most people because I don't think many people still run a Squeezebox server, but from what I read, and since I don't really have much knowledge about these NAS systems, the apps it supports are actually quite limited, because the only useful ones that I found for some people would be something like a mail server, and I think there was maybe an FTP server, but it's mostly, there were a few more, there were like 12, 15 apps, but none of them are what I would actually need it for. And this seems to be one of the downsides of this one from what I got from another review when I just had to do some research, and he said, you get a nice hardware box, you get a nice connection speed because I get full gigabit speed, but what you don't get is proper app support in case you want to run maybe some server software side on that. So that could be the case. Like I said, mostly what I need it for is to access storage, and this is what it can do, and this is what I will actually use it for. So at some point I will try to get some bigger storage drives, like for example 4 terabyte drives, and then I'm set. Then I could actually, once I don't need my Squeezebox anymore, just leave my server off. Because let's talk about the pricing. I thought when I got this like a month ago, it was still around $230. It's now $290, so I'm not quite sure if I just didn't look up properly or not. But now if I just check the specs, because this is 4 GB of RAM, it has a dual core or something like that, so quite good speeds. It has 2 gigabit ports, 2 USB ports. And if I check those specs, usually all other NAS systems that I found were noticeably significantly more expensive. So if you just want this for storage and you want it cheap, you want it quite powerful in terms of the processing unit, I don't know what kind of CPU is important for that, it does the job fine. Now I personally think at around 290, it's just not as capable, as flexible as you would just if you would build your own quite cheap PC, because at around this price point these days you can actually already build a PC. Of course it will be something completely different, because the options then are completely different, because you can use it as an HD PC, a quite low-end one, you can access to storage, but you can run any software that you want. That's the flexible part, but it will usually take up more space, you will have to build it in on your own. So if you want just an easy solution to get more storage accessible through your local network, through your Wi-Fi, yeah, it does the job, because I think what's important is the speed. It gets it done just as a local accessor. But like I said, I can't really judge the app scenario. If other RAMs, NASs, because I've never used one from Synology or QNAP, which are usually the big ones here, what kind of apps they support, because I never really had a use case for them, because I highly doubted those would run Squeezebox server software anyway. So once I get rid of that software and I will get maybe something else to access my music from, this would totally do the job. Now, if it takes, or if it uses significantly less power, I actually could just kind of turn off my server and just use this. It would do the job for what I need for. Now you have to tell me a lot more, because I don't think I will review much more of these, because I simply am not the proper person to review this, because I never had a use for them before, and that's why I just can't, because usually I only review things that I actually use for myself and then I know what to talk about. This wasn't quite the case here, I know that, but in case you want to know anything I could try on it or something like that, let me know that in the comments, and if it still was helpful, maybe a thumbs up. But personally I have to say, around 300 for, personally I would build a PC, a really cheap one, which would do pretty much the same, but most people don't want to do this. I don't really know. I don't know. Okay, until next time, bye.